Hi everyone, I'm so happy that you're here to join me for the Way of the Animal podcast. Today's topic is intuition, and I don't know, it was just something that came to me and I thought it'd be really interesting to talk about it. Alastair's here to talk about it with me.
Hello.
And we actually both went, what actually is intuition? So I'm going to read the Oxford Dictionary's definition of intuition. The ability to understand something immediately without the need for conscious reasoning. And then it says, a thing that one knows or considers likely from instinctive feeling rather than conscious reasoning.
So like gut feeling or Sixth Sense, good movie.
Yeah, I quite often call it just knowing. Like, I just know. I always say, I don't know how I know, but I know.
This falls into that realm of a lot of things that I'm aware there's something about this stuff, but I have no clue what it is. And every now and again you hear stories, and I know I've read some stories about soldiers and things out on patrol and things, and they've been, nope, we're not going this way, turn around, everyone go this way. And had they continued, they would all be dead, But there was no reason, there was nothing that actually told them you shouldn't do this. It just a gut feeling and nope, this is a bad situation.
I really liked that in the dictionary there, the instinctive feelings. I feel it's really instinctual, it's a deep inner sense of knowing. It's, through our connectedness to everything around us, that primal awareness for survival.
Yeah.
And I think, so from a safety standard, your standpoint, you're feeling into situations and gathering whether you're safe or not, or, feeling like something's right or not, and changing your mind.
I think it goes into more than just your safety.
Yeah.
It goes into everything in everyday life.
To simplify it down, like the primal instincts of safety. So with the soldiers, that's why it really came to me there was, that is what our ancestors would have done in situations where, they feel like maybe there's a lion stalking them. It's just having that feeling like something isn't right. And now, there's a lot more we can connect in with that. Like just, is this the right choice? You can feel into your own intuition. And something that I mentioned, which I think we'll get into, is the thought that came to me is that, and the example and the reason why this has all come up is because my dog Bria had a seizure like a month or so ago, maybe 2 months, I don't know now. It's been a while. And she's not had one since. But I had a moment last night where I was triggered into that same sense of feeling like she was going to have one. And this is sometimes the struggle that we can have is when we get into a fear state that something may happen. It's knowing, is this a fear state that something might happen because it's actually going to happen? Or is this our emotions creating stories about it because it is a similar feeling just because there was something that happened that was very similar to pre-point of her actually having that seizure. And that's something that I know because I use my intuition a lot. I use it a lot with the animals, my life, with everything. I connect in and I listen to myself. But I've also learned that my emotions can cause havoc with my intuition, and I need to remember. So you have to ask the question, is this the fear? Is this my emotions? Or is it actually instinctual intuition?
That's the interesting thing with intuition as well, I guess, because maybe there is someone out there, but I don't think there's someone out there who claims that their intuition is right 100% of the time. Because, like, you'll get that feeling of not liking something, and then in retrospect, oh, actually, it was just...
But it could be even that it's just, like, I think you can become so sensitive that you don't like something and you literally just like you move away from something that was just not it just wasn't that pleasant.
Yeah, it wasn't life-threatening.
Yeah,
it was just, yeah.
It wasn't harmful. I mean, what's come to mind and was when we were at Chilco Lake.
Yeah.
And we were walking along the shoreline and it was beautiful and we were just walking along and I said, no, I don't think we should go any further. And I just and it was a very strong feeling. I was like, I just feel like I felt like I was crossing a boundary line. I just didn't feel like I wanted to go. I said, yeah, I don't think we should go any further. So we walked a little bit further because, of course, you know, as we do. And there's this massive, I think it was grizzly bear poop.
Yeah.
On the
and
rocks.
Salmon heads.
And it was just like, yeah, okay, we were, and I was like, okay, so I was crossing the line into that bear's territory and I could feel the marking of the energy of, no, this is my area, get out. You know, there's that feeling of get out. And I'm sure a lot of people have felt that even human-wise, you know, not to go to certain places. You feel unwelcome and feel like there's that get out sort of feeling. But yeah, that was an animal one, which was really interesting because obviously being the UK, we don't have animals that can kill us in the same way. So I hadn't come across that. But yeah.
No, that is interesting. And it's one, I'm certainly more familiar with that form of things because I use it a lot moving cows, that I'll use almost this imaginary wall of energy that I'm putting up to push them away. And I can cover much more than I can physically cover just by my intention for them to not cross it.
Yeah, I mean, we're getting into bigger things, but we always talk about when the pair of us move cattle, there's just something about it. It's actually very draining because we're not just moving cattle, we are using our energy to move cattle, using our power of intention, our clear thought, our pictures. So if we want them to go to a gate they've never gone to before, we're picturing the gate. And it's come to the stage it's quite subconscious for us to behave in that way with them. But I always wonder why I'm so exhausted by that. But it's because I have put my all into it to help those cattle to understand what we're doing.
Yeah, that's it. But yeah, we are getting slightly off of intuition.
But that's fine.
But yeah, intuition, it's an interesting one. I do things, I think, quite intuitively. Like I quite often will just be like, yep, let's do this. And I won't think too much about it. And I just go with that gut feeling of, yeah, this seems like a good idea. I really like that about you, and I trust your intuition greatly because it's wrong sometimes.
It is, but you also have that capacity of you regulate your emotions a lot better than I do. So your intuition is usually on par, better than mine, because I have to sort of work through the waves of emotion to get to the truth beneath. To find so I mean, to go back to the story with the dog, it was just me getting fearful and I got myself into an anxious state, and I was just I'm fortunate because instead of working through it then asking my intuition, I actually asked you and your intuition, Alastair, if she was okay, if everything was okay, and you said it was. So then I worked through my emotions, let that go, and then I could feel that yeah, it's okay. Yeah. But I've had points, I've definitely had the points where my stomach has flipped, like something's not right. Something's really not, and usually it takes a minute to find out what it is, but I've woken up with, be careful, something is not right now. I just know something's not right. I don't know what it is, but something's not right. And then, later on we found out what it is, and it's not even necessarily directly to do with us, but it's just like there's something bad going on.
And it's interesting with intuition and everything like that, because, you talk about our ancestors and very primitive and the animals and things. There's definitely been a loss in connection with ourselves and with our intuition. Yeah. If you think back to, caveman times, and women times, that their intuition would be such a large part of their lives.
Rely on its survival, basically. So it's like they would be able to sense where animals are that are hunting, or being hunted by animals, you know, be able to sense like this is not a good place to go, or even so much as, I mean, I've heard stories of dogs stopping their owners from walking a certain way, and within seconds a tree's fallen down, you know, and it just shows you how we've lost it, but the animals still have it, and how much you should trust your animals as well. So, you know, if mine are having a sort of fearful response about something, I stop and wait, and we check that it's not an emotional trigger, because sometimes they can be triggered as well by a repeated something that I can't think of the word, but pre whatever had happened another time that has scared them.
Yeah.
But also, you know, they have their connection is so much better. You know, they're just better connected.
Well, it's because our lives are just full of so much distractions
and we get
faff.
so busy in our mind. And I think, and you know, a lot of what I do with the animals and what I like to help people to do with their animals is create that better connection with themselves and understanding their intuition and tuning into themselves. Because when you tune into yourself, that's when it's much easier to connect, communicate, and be in tune with your animal. Because really, I feel like intuition is almost the way they communicate, because they're communicating from within themselves to us as well. And I think...
And no, I think you're completely right with that they definitely have a higher level of intuition and ability to read situations than we do. And I think a lot of that is just due to our modern life of...
distractions.
Yeah.
It's like heavily distracted. And I always say, oh, I do this and I come back to myself. And it's realizing that I get lost in the distractions and in my mind. And when I do that, like, I don't even feel like myself.
So that must be an important part of trying to listen to your intuition more, is trying to not so much shut out, but quieten down.
Well, come back to yourself. It's like...
all the exterior...
I mean, this is why people
noise.
meditate and things, you know? It's to slow down and quieten down everything else. And meditation can be walking in a forest. You know, you know how much you start to hear the birds, the rustles of the trees. You know, it doesn't have to be a forest, but you know what I mean. I'm giving an example.
Meditation isn't sitting with your eyes closed going hum.
No, meditation to me, meditation is more about the journey within yourself than how you're doing it. And it's like everything I say and everything I do with the animals and everything I try to teach is more about how you're being than what you're doing.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like meditation is much more about finding that inner quiet than anything else.
I mean, it's funny because one of the things I call myself with the animals is an animal intuitive.
Yes.
And it's very interesting that's what I call it. And it's just because I use my intuition to connect with them. And I hear them when I do that, I hear them.
Yeah.
You know, I hear what they have to say. I hear what they have to think, you know. And it's something that I find quite hard to teach or put into words.
Yeah, I can imagine that.
When it becomes very natural, it's like, okay, so how am I doing that?
To hark back to that story of the soldiers, is that, like, explain why you chose to take a different route instead of going that way. Well, I don't know, you know, it didn't feel right. Like, how do you explain it didn't feel right?
And I think so then you get into a big part of it is trust.
In yourself.
Yep. Trust yourself. And then I always say with your animal, like, trust your animals, trust what they're saying to you, and trust what you're hearing about them as well.
I like trust in yourself and have faith in yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. And that can be hard sometimes, especially when you're emotionally triggered and, you know.
We get back to these stories that we tell ourselves, and how many people out there tell themselves the story of, I always make bad decisions, I always, you know,
I always do it wrong.
I always do it wrong, yeah. I never see what's coming. All these stories they tell themselves to negatively enforce not listening to their intuition and not trusting themselves.
And it's really funny how because I do distant healing sessions or healing sessions in real life with my animals and with people as well, is how much when I'm in that state, and it's definitely like I see it's like a switch, which I should bring more of that state into my real life more often, which I am working on, is that when I'm in that state, I trust everything I get, even if it feels completely random.
So that trust is really interesting. So tell us an entertaining story about trusting.
I know what you're thinking. And again, I do this a lot with Alastair. We've been together a very, very long time.
Feels like forever.
I know what he's thinking a lot. And I'll be, oh, what coffee do you want? Oh, no, I've got it. You know, what tea do you want? Oh, no, it's this. And you're like, yeah. Or it'll be, oh, God, you're flicking through. Will you make a decision? And it's just like, because I can just hear all the different things. So, yeah, it's really interesting, but I know what story you mean. I was helping a friend's dog who had just had an operation to remove a lump on his leg. And he's quite an older dog, so he wanted a hand just helping him feel better after his operation, and sort of, you know, that way where older dogs it can knock them back, so they wanted them to just feel a bit better in themselves. So connected in with lovely Stark, and he was just, I quite often ask, is there anything you want to say to your guardians, your people who look after you? And he just kept showing me this blue ball bouncing around. So he's showing me before. I was like, do you have a favorite? I just thought, oh, maybe it's his favorite toy. You know, I ask questions, I get visions, and I just take what I get, and I always repeat it back.
And this is a dog you've never met?
I'd never met him. Nope, never met him. And he just kept showing me this blue ball. And I was like, okay, got it. I will relay that on. So I messaged my friend and I said, okay, I felt this and that, you know, the emotions I felt helped him to release, and, you know, how it helped him feel better. And then I said, but he just kept showing me these blue balls. Like, I don't know what it was about this blue ball, but he kept showing me. And my friend went, no way. He said, well, I got my wife here to get some tennis balls to put under the furniture. We're cutting them half, putting it under the furniture to protect the floor from the bottom of the furniture, and they were blue tennis balls. And he really wanted one, and I wouldn't let him have one. And so, yeah, Stark got a blue ball to play with and was very happy.
So much like intuition. Explain that one to me.
Exactly. And you know, when you get into every treatment I do, every healing session I do, there's always that exclamation of, how do you know that? How did you know that? And of course, I don't really know how I know it, but I know that it comes to me, and I always tell the owner or the guardian whatever messages I get, whatever I see, they're shown. And it's really, it's amusing and fascinating.
Like, I just don't understand. Like,
and I blew our friend's mind, because as much as he wanted me to help with his dog, he also was another person that was sort of a bit more skeptical about it, didn't really know how it worked, but was all up for anything that would help his best friend. He was going to see if we could help. And the great thing was, beyond the blue ball and the excitement of that, is that Stark was actually just much more happy within himself and relaxed after the session, and got a bit more energy back. So that's, you know, yeah. But yeah, how did I know?
It was
there's just no
intuition.
way.
How do you know these things? How does your mind, your subconscious, whatever you want to call it, how does it tell you?
Well, it was more, so it's not my mind telling me or my subconscious telling me. It is the energetic connection that I make during the session with the other animal that allows them to communicate to me, and I hear and receive it.
So then, with intuition and feeling into a situation, is that your energy communicating with the energy of the...
It's connecting with the energy of the environment around you, I expect.
I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if the thing that we always forget as humans is that we are all connected and everything is connected. And you can take that as far down as, they were doing the experiments with the cells where they split two cells and put them under different situations and one would react hundreds of miles away, So It's like things are all connected, even though I think the biggest fallacy that we have created in the story of human population is that we are separate.
Yes.
And we're not. I mean, look at COVID and how the whole nation became fearful. And, like that for me as a highly sensitive person, talk about connecting with the intuition was a really challenging time because I had my own fears and things going on, but I could also feel the fear, the sadness, and the remorse of the whole nation. It was like a very powerfully energetic, challenging time. And at that time, something I did to protect myself, and I've actually really enjoyed that I've done that, is I stopped watching the news. I stopped looking at news stuff altogether because I just noticed every time I looked at that, it just fed my fear.
Yeah.
And once I disconnected from that and just was with myself, I could feel my own intuition about how I was.
Yeah.
And I could carry on in a better state. And
rather than your emotions playing into what you're feeling, you were being able to...
I was being able to deal with myself and help myself. Yeah.
Well, I think I still don't know what intuition is.
Will we ever know?
I don't know. Maybe in a few hundred years.
I don't know. They've probably done some experiments and things about intuition, but I think when it comes down to it, I think it's, I was going to say useful tool, but really I think it's essential for life. You connect in, you can make choices that are right for you.
Yeah.
You can, live your life in a way that is connected to what you want and you need and how you're being.
Yes. Yeah, I think you're dead right with that your intuition helps guide your life. I think the big thing with your intuition is expecting it to be 100% right 100% of the time is a big ask.
So I think it's always right. I think it's...
You don't understand.
You don't... Yes. We've always talked about your subconscious being very literal.
Yeah.
And I think that's something I'm very conscious of with the animals and when I get messages from them.
Yeah.
Is that the message I get isn't always as literal as we think or feel.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's like what they are showing or saying to me is perhaps their subconscious communicating with my subconscious. And you know how interesting the subconscious is with, like, even when I ask my own subconscious questions, the answers I get can be a bit random, but you can see how there's a connect. It's just like it depends how they're able to communicate what they mean.
It's funny. I remember, I don't remember. I remember reading a book, but I don't remember what book it was I was reading. And there was this person who could communicate with animals. Mm-hmm. It was with wolves, I think, particularly, telepathically. And they were talking about the name of the wolf, and the name, I can't remember what the name was, Shadow, Midnight, whatever.
Yeah.
But that wasn't actually what the wolf's name was. The wolf's name was, and it was all, the way, the cool air in the evening when there's a full moon and the dew, and it was a whole image rather than a specific word. And I think maybe that's what you're getting at, is it's more like the way they communicate something isn't quite the same way.
It makes me think of, I'm going to do the same thing as you. I read something somewhere and I can't even remember exactly what it was, but it was to do with someone, they didn't have a word that meant something. It was a whole phrase that meant it. Yeah. And I cannot for the life remember what the word was, but I remember do you remember telling me? I remember
there's something
but
about
it's like, so a lot of what I do is I'm seeking when I'm working with animals and humans is I'm seeking answers to questions like what I'm always looking for anything that is contributing to any imbalances in them and, helping to release that. And some things I get, I ask the question, I get the sort of direct answer because I'm asking yes or no questions. The direct answer depending on what I've got going in front of me. And then I get an extra intuitive message about the interpretation of exactly what they mean by that. And it's like that, so then I will ask myself, the subconscious, so does that mean that it's this, that's that? And, invariably it's yes.
It's interesting. What it makes me think of is a story which I do know the source from, of someone who was about to do something and they were describing how they felt as they were going to do it. And their palms were sweaty, their heart was racing, their stomach was a bit unsettled, they were hyperventilating a little bit. And one person described that feeling, or that list of symptoms, as excitement, and the other person as anxiety. And I think one was speaking in public, and the other one was Bruce Springsteen going to perform on stage. And he was, I love it, because I always get all wound up and anxious. Anyway, so that's, again, the other thing with your intuition. If your intuition speaks to you like that, because I'm sure there'll be people out there who will think sweaty palms, heart rate up, stomach a little bit jiggly.
I raise my hand, anxiety.
I think of anxiety, whereas someone else who thinks of excitement and getting in a little bit of an adrenaline kick.
It was funny, and ever since you've told me that, I listen to my feelings around anxiety more carefully. Yeah. I'm like, is this anxiety or is this excitement?
Yeah.
And they can have, like you said, a very similar feeling.
So I can imagine that with your intuition so back to my not 100% right all the time, maybe it is just misreading.
Our interpretation. Well, I know that a lot of animal communicators, the hardest part of communicate, and I mean, I'm one of them, saying like there are different people, is interpreting the information you get and not losing the message within it.
And not
creating a story. It's amazing
not making
how,
a bias on the interpretation.
When you start to create the conscious story around it, that's when you can mess it up. And it's a great responsibility to share the messages that you get in a way that doesn't lose the message behind them.
It's a little bit like Chinese whispers.
And it's why I don't do it's not why I don't do, but I don't do direct animal communication as my form of helping the animals. But I do ask if they've got messages they want to share and things. And obviously I'm using animal communication to communicate with that animal during a healing session to help them in whatever way they need to feel better. Because I'm getting messages back.
Yeah.
I just don't go straight into asking them questions about their life, their, that sort of...
How they think the economy is going.
Yeah. Exactly. That'd be an interesting conversation. I don't think they'd really care. Oh, my dog food's getting expensive. I've heard them complaining about that. Yeah.
Yeah. Intuition.
So yeah, I think our intuition is, as long as we're not doing it from an emotional response to something, is 100% right. It's just quite often the interpretation and our ability to sort of, when you take it into the mind, figure out. It's when you take it into the mind and figure out what it means and start creating stories around it. That's where you're losing that connection with the intuition. And that's where I will be quite literal in my interpretation of whatever the animals have shown me.
Yeah, when you're giving feedback.
Yeah, so I give feedback. It was like, no matter what, he just kept showing me these blue balls, and that's all I said. Because because I don't know why.
Yeah, I don't know what
and
that
perhaps his people know why, and perhaps they don't. And, you know, I always say it doesn't matter if you don't understand the messages. I'm just passing them on. And it may be in a month's time, you go, oh, I know what that was about. And that's great. And it's like, in that way, you've not figured out in your mind, it's come to you naturally.
Yeah.
When you try to figure out anything like that in your mind, oh, why is that happening like that? Why did they have this? Why is that problem there? No, we don't need to know. And especially when I'm doing a session with the animals, it's not about why. It's about releasing and healing whatever came up. And the why is no longer important because the animal will always feel better after a session.
Yes. Interesting.
Yeah.
Again, I have no idea how it works, but one of those things that I don't understand in the slightest, and I don't claim to understand, but I know there's something there to not understand.
Yes. So intuition. Have a think about that. That was a really good topic.
It was.
Thanks for joining me.
Thank you.